Welcome into the pump fake, everybody. Jared Bailey with you as always. Yesterday, doing the NFC side of the wild card round with Mike Tenier. If you haven't watched and or listened to that, go ahead and do that after this episode. And today, doing the AFC side with the one and only Aaron Schatz, FTN Fantasy. Good to see you, my friend. How are you?
Good. I'm good, man. I had a good year. Everything's good at FTN. I'm ready for the playoffs. Looks like it should be an exciting playoff. So I'm in a good mood.
Are you somebody that makes New Year's resolutions? Do you believe in that, or is that
No,
okay? I agree. I think that
if I want
that's
to make a resolution, I can make it in July if I feel like it.
exactly. Yes, I very much. Yeah, I think that New Year's might be the most overhyped, overrated non-holiday that there is.
I mean, I like to go out on New Year's Eve. I think
Yeah,
it's a
it's
great
fun.
night to
It's
go
fun.
out. But yeah, I don't do the resolution thing.
Okay, good. I'm glad that we're on the same page. Um, Maybe it's just the fan in me. I want to start with Steelers Ravens. Zay Flowers not playing in this game, dealing with the knee injury that he suffered in Week 18 against Cleveland. And I guess maybe it's the fan in me. There's no reason why I think the Steelers should win this game. They've lost four straight. But with this game in particular, they've had a lot of success over the last 6, 7 years against Baltimore. And last game in Baltimore, I think the score wasn't quite as indicative as how close the game was, if not for two like bad plays by Russell Wilson. That game's a little
Yeah,
bit
the Ravens
closer.
pulled away in the second half. It was 17-17 at one point.
Exactly. So, I was on VSiN last night and I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to pick the Steelers to win. Just, I don't know, call it a gut feeling, call it what you want. I'm sure I'm alone in that boat. You can tell me why I'm wrong, but I don't know. Call it whatever you want, but tell me why I'm wrong.
I like the Steelers to cover.
Yeah.
I like the idea that this game should be closer than it is on paper because these teams do tend to play each other close. But the Ravens were the best team in the league this year. That's
You
the
think they're the
problem
best
with
team in the
picking the
league?
Steelers is that this would be a really big upset. And I don't know if the Ravens can make the Super Bowl because they're going to have to probably go to Buffalo and then to Kansas City. And those are two really good teams too. But by my numbers, by the DVOA numbers, they were the best team in the league this year. Even though they had 5 losses, they only had 2 games with negative DVOA. And one of them was the first week against Kansas City, and it was only barely negative. 3 of their losses, they actually came out with a positive rating. They just had really bad luck against the Raiders, and then they had a couple of other losses where opponent adjustments, whatever. The Steelers game was really close. All the missed field goals, and they missed 2 field goals in the Steelers game, and Boswell hit 6 ridiculous field goals. Yeah. There's nothing the Ravens could do about that. The only really bad game they had all year was there was one Cleveland game that they lost that was really bad.
The first Jameis in Cleveland would have been that one, yeah, because I think that was right after Jameis took over. They had a bunch of drops. I'm curious though, because like the defense wasn't very good for that the first like 10 weeks.
It was better than you think.
Okay.
Because the run defense was very good.
Okay.
And then in week 11, everything flipped on pass defense. Since week 11, the Ravens are the best pass defense in the league.
Wow.
With Eagles sat starters in week 18 asterisk, right? Like, if the Giants, if the Eagles play their starters in week 18, maybe the Eagles end up as the best pass defense of the second half of the year. But the Ravens, it's interesting. The Ravens come out as one of the best teams of all time by my numbers for 2 straight years, but they did it differently. Last year, they had the best defense and a very good offense and good special teams. This year, they had the best offense with a very good defense and bad special teams, but they still came out super historically high. Now, I realize if they don't win it, right, I'm going to look silly again. I don't know what connects these Ravens teams that they tend to have these great regular seasons and then not win at all. But what I often say about players like Lamar Jackson is that they don't win into the playoffs until the year that they do. And history is filled with players who struggled in the playoffs until the year that they broke through. And
Yeah,
maybe
I mean,
this is Jackson's year.
that was always the notion about Peyton, right? Where it was always he's
Yep.
gonna have these amazing regular seasons, but he's gonna lose 41-0 to the Jets in 1 year and not be able to beat Brady. So perhaps this is the year. We shall see. What do the numbers say about Pittsburgh? Just to humor me, because I can't imagine they're great. If you have them near you at this time.
They were 15th overall.
Oh, okay.
19th on offense, 8th on defense, and 2nd on special teams. That is a clear advantage for the Steelers in this game, is special teams.
The special teams is always wonky with them. Like they've had 2 Ben Skoranek fumble recoveries as a gunner on punts. They've had multiple blocked field goals. Calvin Austin had a punt return touchdown this year. They've always been just that team that's like, hey,
Boswell, I mean, there's 2 things in which they're really good. One is punting and punt coverage. And the other, clearly their biggest advantage is Boswell.
Yeah. He was 3 field goals away from tying David Akers' record. He made 41 this year. I think Akers holds the record with 44.
Yeah,
so
I have him as the easily the most valuable field goal kicker in the league.
He was tremendous this year. What has to go right for them offensively? Because Russell Wilson has been terrible over the last month. If you were Mike Tomlin, do you make the switch to Justin Fields, or is that something that doesn't work on my end? Okay.
I'm not a Justin Fields believer.
Okay.
But here's the problem. The strengths of Russell Wilson are all neutralized by the way the Ravens have played defense since week 11. They used to be weaknesses for the Ravens in the first half of the season. And in the second half of the season, for the most part, they have all become strengths. The Ravens were really bad covering number 1 wide receivers for the first few weeks of the season. Now they're 12th since week 11. The Ravens were 28th against deep passes this year, but they're 5th since week 11. Russell was really good this year throwing over the middle. Since week 11, the Ravens are 7th against passes over the middle. Wilson was really good against the blitz. The Ravens are like 6th or something blitzing since week 11. Like everything, they are better, so much better since week 11 to neutralize any strengths that Russell Wilson has.
And yet here I am still believing. Man, if
you want a reason to believe, I did some analysis earlier this year. I have this formula I call post-game win expectancy, right? And it says, given the stats of a certain game, how good was each team? How many penalties did they have? How many plays did they do, et cetera? How often would you expect each team to win? And it turns out there are certain coaches who have a long history of outperforming the expectations, and other coaches have a history of underperforming the expectations. And the coach who stands out the most for outperforming the expectations year after year after year is Mike Tomlin. Whereas John Harbaugh has some years where he's better than the expectations and some years where he's worse. He has some years where they've had good luck and some years where they've had bad luck, et cetera. The one coach who really stood out for underachieving, but yet has a job for enough years to really make it noticeable, is Kyle Shanahan.
Oh, wow. That surprises me a little bit.
A little bit, but then when you think about Kyle Shanahan's record in close games, it doesn't, he has his amazing strengths when it comes to scheming and stuff, but in-game decision-making is not his strength.
No, that's fair. I mean, even this season, they had close losses to the Cardinals and the Rams in games that they were winning rather handedly at one point. So,
but Tomlin, the Steelers get into games that you would only expect them to win like 30% of the time, and Tomlin wins. So that's the hope. The hope is that this is a close game and that, whatever mojo Tomlin has in the way that he motivates his players, that they pull it out.
If the Ravens do lose this game, or even if, they win and they look bad in the divisional round, is there going to be, in your opinion, some grumblings about John Harbaugh maybe being ousted? It feels like there's been grumbles like that from Ravens fans for the past year or two.
Yeah, I hope not. I think he's a great head coach, But I would see where at a certain point, if they can't get over the playoff hump, if they get slaughtered in the divisional round, right? It's one thing if they have a loss like Buffalo had with the 13 seconds, but it's another thing if they get slaughtered, right? There may be a little bit of grumbling, but I don't think there should be. I would be fine to have John Harbaugh be the head coach of my team as long as he wants to be.
Sure. Let's go to Chargers and Texans, the annual Houston Texan early afternoon Saturday playoff slot whenever they're in. What do your numbers say about them since Stephon Diggs went down in week 7? I mean,
worse.
Yeah, obviously they
went from bad to worse. I didn't break that down. I didn't do a breakdown of, because I just know they've gotten worse over the course of the season. I did a weighted DVOA, so more weight to recent games, that took week 18 out for the teams that sat starters to get a better idea of how strong each team was going into the playoffs. And Houston is 14 out of the 14 teams.
Worse than Pittsburgh.
Worse than Pittsburgh, yes.
Wow. That surprises me a little bit.
Pittsburgh was like 12th.
Oh, okay. Yeah. They're kind of in the same spot they were last year, where, they brought in Stephon Diggs to kind of give them a third option, and they didn't have Tank Dell this time last year, and that's kind of what compromised them against Baltimore in the wild card round. And now they're right back in the situation where, okay, it's Nico Collins and who's going to step up.
Missing Tank Dell and Stephon Diggs is a big deal.
Yeah.
I've forgotten about Stephon Diggs. It's been so long that he hasn't been there that it's like I was like, oh, Tank Dell is missing, because you forget that Stephon Diggs was even there.
It is kind of crazy. And on the Chargers side of things, like, their offenses over the last month look really good. They have a game in New England where Herbert and McConkey really caught fire. The defense has played well. They get J.K. Dobbins back from lengthy injury, and
they are not as good running the ball as they want to be.
I feel like they run it a lot and get volume stats, but they're not efficient.
They are 23rd in DVOA running on first down and 27th on second down.
Oh, wow.
They're good running on third down, which is a mixture of give up draws and short yardage.
Mm-hmm.
But they want to run a lot, but they're not. It may be setting up their passing game, but it's not succeeding on its own.
I think that's the same problem that the Steelers have, except the Chargers have Justin Herbert, and they can kind of get bailed out with that, whereas the Steelers have Russell Wilson, and they didn't have George Pickens for a while, and even when Pickens came back, he didn't play well against Cincinnati this past week. So
I think the big thing in this game is going to be pass rush. Because the Chargers' pass rush is surprisingly not great, considering that they have Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack. But the Texans' offensive line has been such a mess all year, especially in the interior, and Shaq Mason may not play, and he's their best interior lineman. And then the other side, the Texans are number 1 in ESPN's pass rush win rate, and the Chargers have weaknesses on the inside, but they have 2 amazingly good tackles.
Yeah.
In Slater and Alt, and those are the guys who are going to be blocking Will Anderson and Daniil Hunter.
Potentially a big Puna Ford game too, maybe. But on the other side, we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I mean, because of the problem, both teams are much better on the tackles than they are on the interior line. So this definitely could be a place for defensive tackles to raise some havoc.
For Buffalo and Denver, obviously Buffalo is the heavy favorite. The Broncos were a surprise team for many. I think, being an 8.5, 9-point favorite, that seems fair. The thing that I worry about with Buffalo is that they've had a tendency to start games slow. They did it against New England. They did it against Tennessee earlier in the year, where they just kind of sleepwalk throughout the first 2 or 3 drives. And you can do that against, a Mason Rudolph-led Titans team or a New England team that, is still, finding its identity in a new
Drake
era.
May and the cast of Foxborough High School, yes.
Basically, yeah. But if you do it in the playoffs, I do worry, even if it's against a rookie quarterback and a team that you are better than, but a defense in Denver that is very good.
I mean, I think you play who is Patrick Surtain not covering? Based on charting from the FTN charting and the coverage DVOA that I do, Patrick Surtain was the best cornerback in the league this year, and Riley Moss was the worst.
Oh, wow.
And that's a real surprise because scouting people think he was very good, but the numbers are not good for him. So it's very, I mean, they're actually very good. Denver's very good against tight ends, but they're very bad against running backs as receivers. So it's find Khalil Shakir, find whichever of the outside receivers is not being covered by Surtain, and find James Cook, and you'll be fine.
Maybe a little bit of Ty Johnson and Ray Davis, who have had success as pass catchers.
Ty Johnson surprisingly made plays this year, man.
He's been awesome.
He was like 4th in my values for running back receiving, like Ty Johnson. Like,
oh, wow.
Yeah.
They've utilized, and look, I think that's one of the things that Joe Brady really emphasized when he took over is not just the run game, but the utilization of the running backs that they had, and they've done a really good job of turning those guys into real role players. For the Broncos offense, what is their key to success if they want to have a chance of beating Buffalo? I think that the Bills have had games this year. You know, they give up 40 points in consecutive games to the Rams and the Lions, but they've also dealt with injuries where Matt Milano was gone for a while, Terrell Bernard was gone for a while. What do your numbers say about them defensively?
Well, they have a weakness up the middle.
Yes.
But remember, that's Bernard being injured for a while and Milano being injured for a while. So I don't know how real that weakness is. They're also weaker against short passes than deep. And early in the season, Bo Nix was, you know, Mike calls him Lieutenant Beauregard sideways, throwing all this like behind the line of scrimmage stuff. But he's thrown deep a lot in the second half of the year. And that's actually a strength of the Bills. So you want to actually throw the shorter stuff like the Marvin Mims type stuff and the valet and, you know, to the running backs and stuff. But this is not, I mean, when we talk about Bo Nix being good, we need to be understanding that we're talking about Bo Nix being really good in the context of what you expect from rookie quarterbacks. As far as an NFL starter, he is at best average at this point. And the Bills' defense is better than you think it is. And their offense is the second best in the league behind Baltimore. So they should be able to outscore Denver. At one point they were expecting light snow, but I don't think they are anymore. But it is going to be really cold. So I could see that keeping the score down, and maybe that makes it so that the Broncos cover 8.5. But I mean, look, you know, upsets are possible. Upsets happen in the NFL all the time. It's really hard to imagine a situation in which the AFC champion is not the Chiefs, the Bills, or the Ravens.
Right. I think that's
part of that is feeling like the Bills and Ravens are getting through this first round pretty easily.
I would love for the Ravens to not as a Steelers fan. At the same time, though, you know, I've been kind of paneling my friends when it comes to this, and all of them are telling me I'm wrong and just an angry fan. But if the Steelers get slaughtered, I mean, what's the point of keeping this thing going? Why not just start over, you know?
You know, it's tough. I understand why people don't like Tomlin, but like I said, he has an amazing history of outperforming the underlying stats. The problem is that the underlying stats for the few years have all been so mediocre. I don't know how you solve the problem because they're not in position to draft a top quarterback in a year where the top quarterbacks aren't even that good.
Yeah, and I made the case that, you know, both written and doing this, where I said that it's kind of a catch-22 in a way because, like, Tomlin raising the floor, I think in the grand scheme of things has done more harm than good because, like, you're just consistently winning 9-10 games and just staying in that purgatory and not really being able to.
I'll accept that argument, absolutely, because there is maybe a sense that the Steelers need to have a year where they suck so they can really start over. And while Tomlin's there and TJ Watt is there, whatever, that's not going to happen.
Yeah. And yeah, it's just a pain where you know what this team's going to be each year. And we'll see. Maybe they shock everybody on Saturday. We'll find out.
You can take a shot at a quarterback in the middle of the first round.
And they tried doing that. How'd that work?
You know, that's a low percentage shot.
Yeah.
Right. Pickett didn't work. It's a low percentage shot. They tried it with Pickett. It didn't work. And we just lost one quarterback. Carson Beck apparently is doing the transfer portal instead of the NFL draft. So
I didn't see that.
That takes one of the mid-range quarterbacks out of the that takes one of the mid-range quarterbacks out of the possibilities for this year.
Yeah. And plus, Drew Aller, who I was really hoping for, is going back to school, and it feels like he'll be that either the first or second quarterback next year. What are we going to call that? We had tank for Tua, we had tank for Trevor. We need a D word for Drew, or drag for
Dip
Drew.
For Drew, I don't know.
Okay, dip for Drew's good. We'll workshop it. Have you put out your Super Bowl pick yet?
I mean, an updated pick. I mean, you know, it changes in my mind all the time. I feel like because of the injuries on defense, even with Anzalone back, I feel like Philadelphia has to be favored to come out of the NFC. It's not what I want, because I'm a big fan of fan bases that have never made it to the Super Bowl, making it to the Super Bowl, right?
Sure.
Or have never won the Super Bowl, right? I'd love to see Detroit do it, but I feel like you've got to favor Philly at this point. And the AFC, you have to favor Kansas City because they only have to play one of the Bills and Ravens.
Yeah.
But I think that it's better odds that the Bills or Ravens win in Kansas City than that Kansas City makes it.
Yeah, and we kind of did the same thing last year where we were like, oh man, the Chiefs don't look good. This feels like the year that they'll.
I know it's bad to pick against the Chiefs, and everyone's like, why would you dare pick against the Chiefs and whatever? And it's not, it's more out of respect for the other teams than it is disrespect for the Chiefs.
And I feel like mine is just more like, I don't want to be the dude who's like, yeah, probably like Chiefs, Eagles, or Chiefs, Lions. And I wanted to just, be like, at least have a little bit of parity, and also just hope that it's not the Chiefs in the Super Bowl again.
I mean, I love the Ravens. The Ravens would make me look very good. The Ravens were my preseason pick to make it out of the AFC, and the Ravens are the number one team in DVOA. If the Ravens make the Super Bowl, I look good. So that's what I would like to see happen.
Yeah, as the resident like Josh Allen super fan, if it's not going to be Pittsburgh, which it's not going to be, I would be very okay with Buffalo getting there and winning it.
I mean, Bills Lions would be such an amazing.
Oh, absolutely!
It would be just incredible.
Would be absolutely elated
so
for
much
that.
Fun.
Would be very fun. What have you got coming on FTN?
First of all, the FTN Stats Hub is free through the wildcard games.
Oh, okay.
So people should check that out, and they'll know all the charting we have and all the DVOA of different splits and EPA and all kinds of stuff. Really check it out. And we have DVOA playoff previews for all 6 games. I've already posted for the Saturday games. We'll post for the Sunday games tomorrow. The Monday game we'll post on Monday. But that stuff's all at ftnfantasy.com/DVOA.
I love it. Thank you so much for coming on, Aaron. I always love talking to you and getting your insight. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in and listening, for watching this on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, all that fun YouTube stuff. If you're listening as a podcast, be sure to leave a review. We'll be back after the wildcard round to recap everything that happened. So thank you guys so much for tuning into the Pump Fake. Talk soon.